Howdy, welcome back to Wobble Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuing support. Last weekend, 6 from 8. Let's get stuck into round number 22. Round 22 starts on Thursday night from CommBank Stadium. The Parramatta Eels host the Melbourne Storm. Melbourne Storm, they are $1.28 favourites. Parramatta, they are $3.70. For the Parramatta Eels, there are no changes to the team list that went to Brisbane and defeated the Broncos at Suncorp. For the Melbourne Storm, there are some massive changes, both in and out. Cameron Munster and Ryan Pappenhausen are in. Jerome Hughes and Trent Liero are out for the Melbourne Storm. Parramatta Eels, they have been plucky. They have been building nicely throughout 2025, I'd say. Yeah, a couple of speed bumps throughout, but they've been building nicely under Jason Riles, and I really like the look of Joash Papali, and I think he and Mitch Moses could form a great combo next season. For the Melbourne Storm, they are walking a bit of a premiership tightrope. Like, they are going to be a top 4 team come finals time, but their trust, or my trust in them to actually feature on grand final day is pretty thin. It's getting pretty thin, I should say. And without Jerome Hughes now for the next 6 weeks, pretty much I would suggest until the first week of September. It's going to be fascinating to see how they go. I think they do go to Parramatta and get the win. $3.70 about Parramatta though, without Jerome Hughes, without Trent Liero. It's enticing, but then again, Harry Grant, after what he did last weekend, was absolutely incredible. So I'm going to go the Melbourne Storm to win this game 1-12. Moving into Friday night, there are 2 games. Match number 1 emanates from Go Media Stadium. The Warriors host the Dolphins. The Wars at home are the outsiders. They are $2.19, whereas the Dolphins, they are $1.68. The question for me coming into this game revolves more so around the Dolphins. They're coming off a win against the North Queensland Cowboys. They're coming off a bye as well after that. So they're coming off the bye. How well are they going to perform? Are they going to be rusty as all buggery, or are they going to come out absolutely flying? Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they had their first bye the week before they took on the Melbourne Storm earlier this season, or they had a bye, one of their 2 other byes this year. And I think on both occasions, the Dolphins came out and looked maybe the most impressive team who was to come off of a bye. So I'm really fascinated to see how the Dolphins go coming off of their 3rd and final bye. For the New Zealand Warriors, it's not South Sydney, it's not Newcastle, but the Warriors have an injury problem big time. The ward is filling up massively. Tamare Martin and Tanner Boyd will be the halves pairing on Friday night because, unfortunately, Chanel Harris-Tavita is out for the next couple of weeks, I believe that is. But you've also got Wade Egan, who is out due to, I believe, a concussion. And then James Fisher-Harris is out, I think, due to a suspension as well. Harris-Tavita, Egan, and Fisher-Harris, on top of all the other injuries and whatever else have you they've got going on, that's massive. Looking at the interchange for the New Zealand Warriors as well, Tuapiki, Laban, Freddie Lussick, and Tanner Stowers-Smith. That is the interchange. That is a small interchange compared to what was present in round number 1, for example, or even just freaking last week for the Warriors. So maybe someone like a Bunty, a Foa could come into the fold just to size them up just a fraction, but it's good to see Tuapiki in and Samuel Healy starts at hooker, and Vaimalga, I believe this is his first start in first grade as well. He'll partner Jackson Ford. Moving into the Dolphins now, and Max Fengai is the centre. Cody Nikorima returns and plays 5'8" alongside Katoa, but imagine a Dolphins full-strength backline. That's what is present. That's what is going over to Auckland on Friday. The forward pack, Molo, Marshall King, and a returning Felici Kofusi. The back row is Lemuelu, Keeley, and Kurt Donahue. And the interchange reads Ray Stone, Tawa, Mark Nichols, and Josh Kerr. And just looking at the reserves, look, Kenny Bromwich is still floating around on the reserves there, and Harrison Graham is the 18th man. I just think the outs of Harris Tavita, Fisher Harris, and Egan, they've been critical to their chances all season long. I know Fisher Harris has missed games, and same with Wade Egan. I have to go. I have to go the Dolphins here. I know that the outsiders are the Warriors, but the Dolphins to win in New Zealand wasn't on my bingo card. Even last week, honestly, even last week before the Warriors had that shock loss to the Gold Coast Titans, the New Zealand Warriors, I think they're going to cop a loss here. But from next week onwards, even on Friday night, they got to steady the ship, because they're not free falling, but they are on a very, very slippery slope at the moment. Yeah, even though they're favourites, I'm gonna go the Boyle over here. The Dolphins, I think they can go to Mount Smart Stadium and get the victory. Dolphins 1-12. The second game on Friday night is Brisbane versus South Sydney at Suncorp. Brisbane, they are $1.14. South Sydney, they are $5.80. And I wouldn't be surprised if that margin blew out a little bit more before kickoff. Selwyn Cobbo is back. He's playing on the Sting in favour of Jesse Arthurs, Dean Mariner, Shibasaki, Stags. That is the rest of the back five. The forward pack is unchanged. So too is the interchange there for the Brisbane Broncos. And then, South Sydney, my goodness, I've never seen anything like it. I've been watching rugby league, for 20, 30 plus years now, and I don't think I've ever seen an injury crisis like it. So Jack Whiten has been named at 5'8", but last night he failed in trying to downgrade his shoulder charge, so he will now miss 4 weeks for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So he was named at 5'8", and who do you put in? I honestly don't know who you put in. Lewis Dodd has been named at jersey 19, but they kind of don't want to play him. They don't want to play him for some reason or another, but he just might have to. The rest of the back line, Tallis Duncan, Tass, they are the centres. Jai Gray is at fullback. Bailey, Bentley, Harpe comes back into the fold, playing on the Sting. Arrow, Ryan Gray, Sean Kepi, Ewan Aiken, Jacob Host, Thomas Fletcher, Ashton Ward. They are some of the names. Peter Mamazoulis as well is 18th man, so he might come in into the fold as a late inclusion. If South Sydney cause an upset, it's the upset of the year. And the Brisbane Broncos, they are on red alert, but I don't think that's going to happen. Brisbane Broncos 13+. Super Saturday, there are 3 matches, and game number 1 is from Seabus Super Stadium. The Titans versus Penrith Panthers. Gold Coast are $4.45. Panthers, they are $1.21. That was the best performance by the Gold Coast Titans this year. Absolutely outstanding effort in a very high quality affair against the New Zealand Warriors. The back line is unchanged after last weekend's victory. The forward pack for them, Sam Verrills comes back to play hooker. Alec Wenke, Fermor, and Khaleesi Haas are the back row, and the interchange reads Tom Weaver, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Isaac Fa'asua-Malawi, and Josh Paxton. Chris Randall is out due to concussion, and Sean Mullany is out suspended as well. Looking into the Penrith Panthers, it looks like that they are unchanged after last weekend's pretty nice victory against the West Tigers, 36 points to 2. Paul Alamotti has been named as 18th player with Tungo and McLean playing in the centres as well. It should be a pretty competitive game. Penrith, they are peaking. They might actually be the team you would argue with the most amount of momentum at the moment. Maybe that's to do with a little bit with their aura, but Penrith Panthers are back, and I don't mind. I don't mind as long as it's not a couple of other teams. I don't mind that it's Panthers going for a 5-peat, but besides Canberra Raiders, you would probably suggest Penrith Panthers are the team with the most momentum in the NRL at the moment. But this Gold Coast Titans side, despite still a couple of players out, it's a pretty competitive starting 13. I'll think I'll go the Penrith Panthers 13 plus. I don't think the Titans defense will be good enough to contain them that well, but I still think this might be a pretty fun game to watch. But Penrith Panthers 13 plus. The second game on Super Saturday is from Wynn Stadium, Wollongong. Dragons versus Raiders. Raiders $1.44. The Dragons, they are $2.82. The Dragons, they have Jaden Sewer out due to an MCL injury. That happened due to a hip drop tackle by the Cowboys last weekend. And that means, what does that mean? So Leilua, Molo, and DeBellin is the back row, and that sees the interchange look like Little, Stewart, Sele, and Blake Lowry, obviously pending changes maybe for the Canberra Raiders now. It looks like Sebastian Chris is back in, and Simi Sasangi goes back to the interchange bench, and it looks like Noah Martin is the man that is left out for the Canberra Raiders. Last time these two sides met was only a month ago in an Origin-affected game, and it was a cracker. It was an absolute beauty. Dragons and Raiders usually do provide the goods. So I think I'll go 1-12 in this one. The Raiders, they're back on the road again after a fortnight at home, and in both of those games at home, they had to fight. They had to really, really fight, and that is the concern, that their starts need to be rectified, but they've still got plenty of time. And I have already, if you haven't already, circle it. I have already circled round number 25, Penrith versus Canberra in Mudgee on a Friday night. My goodness, what a matchup to look forward to. I'm going to go the Canberra Raiders to win this game 1-12. And the main event on Saturday is from Four Pines Park, Manly versus the Sydney Roosters. Sea Eagles, $1.77. Roosters, they are $2.10. Homali Olakawatu is out for the Manly Sea Eagles. Therefore, it looks like that Corey Waddell is going to start. Tommy Talau finds himself on the interchange bench. But besides that, it is unchanged after last weekend's drubbing at the hands of the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. For the Sydney Roosters, Victor Radley has been named on the reserves, so he could be a late inclusion. Iowelu is in jersey number 14 for the Sydney Roosters. But by and large, they're unchanged after, I think they had the bye last weekend, didn't they, actually? So they lost to the Cronulla Sharks, and they had the bye last weekend, and now they're coming in fresh. They're the outsiders. This game, it's very, very close to call. As a matter of fact, also, Billy Smith is also playing at centre for the Sydney Roosters this weekend. Really, really tough game to call. This is effectively 8th versus 9th. This is massive, especially for the Sydney Roosters, who have the worser of the for and against as well. They lose this one, they might pretty much fall 2 wins outside of the top 8, with Manly getting that bumper ahead of them with the for and against, and also the Dolphins with their superior for and against as well. So this is bigger for the Sydney Roosters. These two sides, there's going to be errors in this game. This is probably the game of the round. It actually is, based on the ladder positions. The history. Roosters versus Manly. This is the game of the round, but it could be it could be an average old game because both these sides are so susceptible to errors and penalties. Legitimately, it's easier said than done. It might be overly simple, too overly simple, but the team that holds the ball in this game particularly way more than the opposition is going to win this game. Now, I really think that is going to scream true for this one. Just quickly, there's been talk about Sam Walker. His return to first grade. Has he sort of stunted the Roosters' attack? I'll tell you what, I'd be having bloody Sandon Smith in there. Oh, wait a minute. No, yeah, okay. So the Roosters, they lost to the Melbourne Storm last weekend. Apologies. Sorry, it's 7:30 in the morning. I just did a night shift. They lost to the Melbourne Storm last weekend in a beauty. I'd still have Sandon Smith in there, but he's not going to be a part of the action because he suffered a terrible concussion. This is such a hard game to tip. I think if the forward pack, I know Matt Lodge did some smacking in the first half against the Bulldogs, but if the Roosters forward pack, if they can get the mongrel and maintain it, if Spencer Leniu can come on and do a little bit of bullying, I'm going to go the outsider. I don't think I've gone an outsider so far this round, and I'm going to go the outsider in this one. I'm going to go Roosters at $2.19 to go to 4 Pines Park and get the victory in a critical game for both of these clubs. On Sunday, there are two matches. Match number 1 is from CommBank Stadium. The West Tigers host the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. The Tigers, they are $3.57. The Bulldogs, they are $1.29. For the Tigers, Jareem Buller is back into the fold. That moves Sunia Turuva to the Stings, and the rest of the back line is unchanged. Coruscant is in there at hooker. Fainu, Seyfarth and Duihi are the back row, and the interchange is Fainu, Hunt, Pole and Tony Sukkar. And then looking into the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, Connor Tracy, is out for 3 weeks. Therefore, it's going to be Jacob Carraz who plays at fullback, and Jethro Rinakama is going to be playing on the Sting. Yeah, okay, I'll say it. Yeah, Lachlan Galvin comes up against his old club, West Tigers. It could be spiteful, but I think the spitefulness will be out of the contest early on in the second half. I think the Bulldogs will run away with it. They show tremendous form. That's their best performance since it's their best performance since they lost to the Penrith Panthers about 5 or so weeks ago. I think the Bulldogs, they well and truly got back on track last weekend, and I think they run through the West Tigers, albeit I think it'll be a pretty physical, spiteful first half, but I think the Bulldogs will run away with it in the end. Bulldogs 13+. And finally, from Shark Park, the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks host the North Queensland Cowboys. Sharkies, they are $1.39, whereas the Cowboys, they are $3. Couple of changes here for both of these sides. For the home side, the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, Talakai is going into the centres. Sione Katoa, Jesse Ramey and Ronaldo Militalo. Rest of the back line is as you would expect. For the forward pack, Britain Nikora is back after suffering a concussion the week before, I believe. And then the interchange for them is Atkinson, Colquhoun, Billy Burns and Braden Hamlin, ULA. Looking into the looking into the reserves, I just saw the big bald Tom Hazelton has been named on the reserves. So he is sniffing around, isn't he? Of course, he would be coming back this weekend. For the North Queensland Cowboys, their back five is unchanged. Jake Clifford and Tom Dearden are the halves this weekend. So Jake Clifford returns after a 3-week period out due to a quad injury. The forward pack, John Bateman, Jeremiah Nene, Cotter, it's unchanged after last weekend. I really liked Harrison Edwards and Griffin Neem's effort in their first stints last weekend against the Dragons. I thought they worked really, really hard. For the interchange, debutant and it's been a long time coming. Marley Bittungan is jersey number 14, with Lars O'Donnell and Cohen Hess rounding out the interchange. So Carl Lawton is out due to suspension, and Tom Duffy has been dropped. And for the Sharkies, it's Chris Villa and Toby Rudolph who are out. This is also Tom Dearden's 100th first grade game, or is it? Oh, it's his 100th. I think it's for the Cowboys, or it's for first grade. So congratulations to Tommy Dearden. There's a debutant in there. I believe that this is John Bateman's 200th first grade game, I think, or maybe it's his 100th. But he's celebrating a milestone this weekend. Look, it's a good lineup for the Cowboys. This is a rivalry game, despite the Sharks dominating this fixture for the better part of 10 years now. But Sharkies, man, way too inconsistent. Just way too inconsistent. What are you doing, Sharkies? I tipped them to be the premiers this year. I thought that this was the year, and it's just not happening for them. They have not been able to hit top gear all year long. I don't even think they've gotten to the second best level, or maybe fleetingly at times they have. That game against South Sydney at Shark Park, for example, not the one last weekend. Look, I believe the Cowboys can. I believe the Cowboys can go down and win. Look, based off of defense, it's going to be a shootout. But yeah, I think the Cowboys can. They've got the team list. I believe in that team list. And we heard rumours that it was going to be Jason Taumalolo's return game. That is clearly, obviously not the case, unfortunately. Hopefully it's next weekend. But yeah, North Queensland Cowboys 1-12 this weekend. Howdy everyone, thank you very much for your continuous support. I hope you enjoyed that video, and enjoy your footy, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.